is AI going to take our jobs? Yeah, we probably will see some of that. A lot of us witnessed our parents going through a lot of struggle, whether they lost their jobs or their investment accounts. Gen Z tends to be a little more optimistic. They are younger, so maybe they feel like they can take a little bit more chances. A lot of them are not having kids quite yet. They have student loans. They might have some other debts. They're trying to figure out, how do I manage that? But I also want to be saving for my future.
Welcome to The Edge for Tomorrow. I'm your host, Tracey, and here with my co-host, DJ. Thrilled to have our guest today. Jessica Porter is partner at BPG Wealth Management and co-founder of 401k Girls. Jessica, thanks so much for being here with us.
Tracey and DJ, thanks for having me.
So I'd love for you to walk us through your personal journey from the automotive industry to launching 401k Girls and leading in wealth management. Really honing in specifically on just what inspired that pivot. So what about your experience inspired you to take this transition?
I would love to say that there was some, sort of epiphany that I had that led me into financial services. But I speak with a lot of women that are in the industry, and I think, like a lot of them, I fell into it by accident. So I was in the automotive industry for 7 years. I was working at a dealership in college, continued to work there once I graduated, met my now husband down in Austin, in Texas, where I was living, and he's from Portland, so I decided to give it a shot. And when I moved here, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew it wasn't the automotive industry. So I really just started putting my resume out there, applying for different jobs. And funny enough, I like to say that the industry kind of found me because I did not actually apply for my original position. I had interviewed at another company for a totally different position and did not end up being the right fit for them. However, unbeknownst to me at the time, they were clients of BPG's. And when the person that was in my original role she was getting married and moving to the East Coast, they were looking to fill the position. And so they reached out to this company that I had originally interviewed with and said, hey, do you know anybody? And they were kind enough to say, well, she wasn't the right fit for our job, but we still really liked her. They passed my resume over. And so I actually got the call from the company and said, hey, we're looking, do you want to come in? And I came in, and after a couple interviews, I wanted to make it very clear. My degree is in marketing. I have absolutely no experience whatsoever in financial services. And very luckily for me, their response was, that's okay. You have no bad habits for us to break. We can train you from the ground up. And I really loved the atmosphere. In my first interview, they said the sky is the limit. And truly, that's what they meant. And 11 years later, here I am, all my years in the financial services industry with the exact same company.
Yeah, no, I love how life transitions also just make you reflect on what do you want to do career-wise, and that reflects in your journey there.
So since you didn't have the experience, which takes up a lot of our resume, right? What did they say they were most attracted to?
So first of all, my background in the automotive industry was with Ferrari, Maserati. And I think that looks good on a resume no matter what. It's a very well-known name. And because my background was in marketing, I think people sort of forget, no matter what we're doing, that's a part of everything we do, right? We're marketing ourselves, we're marketing our services, we're marketing our company, our business, our brand, whatever it is that we're doing. And so I think that stood out. But I think that it was just my eagerness to want to do it.
I feel like that's so many people's stories, but it's like, if you helped with sales in any way, it's like, no matter what you're applying for, that is, hands down one of the best things to have on your resume. Even if you're like a graphic designer, it's like, anything in that realm. So then we also have another exciting, not transition, this time it's a new creation. You're creating something that didn't exist before that fills a need in the marketplace. 401k girls. Tell us about that.
So that's been really fun. So when I first started working with the team, I was on the retirement plan side of the business. So that's where I've been from the very beginning. I absolutely love 401k plans. I love all the technicalities of it. I love working with business owners to sort of strategize what works best for them. I love the education that we get to do. We get to really do direct hands-on education with participants. We get to do one-on-ones. When I walk out of there and people come up and say, hey, I'm going to go increase my contribution by 1%, or I'm going to open a high yield savings account, or whatever it is that we talked about, that's my favorite thing that I get to do. And so I've been doing that again for 11 years in addition to everything else that we do. And a few years ago, we again took a chance on somebody and hired them. She's been with our team almost 5 years. And after about a year, we really felt like she's got a ton of potential, super smart. And we invited her to join me on the retirement plan side of the business. And so for the last few years, her and I have been doing that. We completely coincidentally have the same last name. So everybody thinks that we're sisters. And we started,
That's cute.
yeah. And so we started talking about it and we thought, it's fairly unique to have two women in the industry consulting on retirement plans. We don't see a ton of that. And people think we're related anyway. How do we package this up? How do we turn this into a brand? And then thus the 401k Girls was born. And funny enough, that was kind of the first thing that popped out was the 401k Girls. And we spent weeks trying to come up with something different or more clever or more interesting, and just nothing landed in the same way. And so that's where we went, and we thought, let's just come at this from purely an education standpoint. We want to be able to get this information out to the masses. We're having these conversations every day with people, but what about the people we don't get to talk to? How do we get that out there? And that's really kind of where the idea was born from.
When you have a name like that, it says so much. I mean, from a marketing perspective, from an audience perspective, like obviously you know what the theme is just with the titles. You know what you're trying to educate about, but also girls, like the 401k Girls, it really implies personality that you're going to be hearing from us, from specific people, and that it's fun, right? And that you're taking a light, approachable approach.
A lot of what we do is sort of breaking down industry topics. So we've done mutual fund expense ratios. We've done RSUs. I'm in Portland. There's a lot of people here who work for Adidas and Nike and companies that issue RSUs. So sort of breaking down what that means. Breaking down, 401k match and how that works. Vesting. A lot of people don't really understand vesting schedules and what that means. So really just kind of a lot of basic stuff that feels very simple to us, but these terms that maybe you've heard, but you don't know exactly what they mean. And we'll do Fact or Fiction Friday. So kind of a common, myth that's in the industry, or maybe that's something that's true. And so we'll do that every week.
So Jessica, what are some of the common financial challenges and questions that you hear, especially from younger audiences?
So for a lot of younger audiences, I think what people are trying to figure out is, how do I balance everything? I feel like there's so many things that are coming at us that we should be doing. And it's trying to figure out, how do I do that? So a lot of the younger people I'm talking to, they have student loans. They might have some other debts. They're trying to figure out, how do I manage that? But I also want to be saving for my future, right? I think a lot of the younger generation, and I'm really excited about this, they're very interested in learning more. They want to invest. They want to, sort of explore this a little bit more. They want to learn about what to invest in, what that means. But how do you balance that? I have to pay back my loans. I'm supposed to have an emergency savings somewhere. Maybe I have a goal of purchasing a house, which, that gets harder and harder and harder these days. How do I balance all these things? Where should my money be going to really have the most impact for my future?
And then there's a $1 billion question that I feel like 401k Girls really has a handle on with your social media. And that is, how do millennials and Gen Zs differ in their habits, in their challenges, everything that businesses and financial services and everywhere are trying to find out right now.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it's so funny to me, and Tracey, I'm sure you feel this too, because not that long ago we were kind of the hated generation, right? The millennials were the bane of the boomer, the Gen X existence. We were, entitled and all of this. And now we're just like pushing 40 and like just trying to, live our lives. And then it's so funny to see this next generation. And I have a almost 20-year-old stepdaughter. So I'm like, I can see the Gen Z and the mindset and all of that. I think, and I'll say too, just kind of as an aside, I got to see this amazing presentation a while ago about the different generations and how all the things that we've lived through affect how we feel, how we make decisions. And one of the questions that came up was, if you think of NASA, what do you think of, right? And for the older generation, it was the moon landing. Amazing, huge, exciting, the biggest thing that had happened during their generation. But then if you ask a Gen Xer, you think of, the was it the Columbia disaster, the Challenger, like something bad. Mm-hmm. And so like literally these things that happen in our lifetime that completely shift the way we feel. And so I think for a lot of millennials, we were sort of coming of age, so to speak, during the Great Recession. And there was so much uncertainty. It was hard for people to get jobs. A lot of us witnessed our parents going through a lot of struggle, whether they lost their jobs or their investment accounts, lost a ton of money. So sort of all this stuff around it, I think, generationally led to us feeling a lot more uncertain. And so I think what I've sort of observed is that the millennials, they're a little more scared, so to speak, a little more nervous to be invested in the market, a little more uncertain about things, especially when there is volatility, when there's uncertainty, like we're feeling right now. Whereas I think Gen Z tends to be a little more optimistic, a little more sort of excited. They are younger, so maybe they feel like they can take a little bit more chances. A lot of them are not having kids quite yet. They're not sort of in that space, but I definitely feel like, just during the time they grew up, it was different. And it feels, and their parents were different too. And so feeling a little bit more excited, a little bit more eager, a little bit more willing to take risks in different ways than I'm seeing from the millennial generation.
Jessica, what are you excited about in terms of trends either in financial services, whether it has to do with AI, any shifts that you're seeing? Yeah.
So I have to, start with the obvious, which of course is AI. It's huge. And I think, there's a lot of people worried, is AI going to take our jobs? And frankly, in some instances, in some industries, in the same way that a lot of automation and such in the past has replaced human beings because it's quicker, more efficient, less expensive, all of that. Yeah, we probably will see some of that. I think specifically from a financial advisor standpoint, you may or may not remember this. For those that were in the industry, it was a big thing, but several years ago, it was the robo-advisors are coming for our jobs. And we're still fine. I mean, there are robo-advisors out there. So, but we're still here, right? All of the fun and exciting part of my job is the meeting with clients and strategizing and building plans and doing the education. The unfun stuff is all the compliance and all the stuff that we're required to do on the back end and the notes and all of these things where, all of these firms are now starting to integrate AI that takes that off their plate, which means I don't have to do all the mundane stuff. I can focus on the stuff that really means something to me and to my clients.
Right, that relationship building stuff. And, my take is that something as intimate as finances, there's always going to be a need and a desire for human connection and interaction when discussing these and developing solutions and resolving whatever the client needs, what their goals in terms of financial freedom and security. What's your goals for 401k girls in the next 12 months or even beyond?
Yeah, so, I think, Haley and I both agreed when we launched this, as I mentioned earlier, the goal was really to come from it from a giving standpoint. The idea is we're out
Hmm.
here, we love what we do, we're having fun, we're putting out content that's just really helpful for people. Ideally, as a business owner and a person that's always looking to grow their business, ideally that starts to convert into clients that come from it.
Hmm.
So, for the last 10 months or so, really what we've just been doing is building up content, building up our base, all of that. And so, I think over the next 12 months, the goal is we'd like to be as active as possible. It's a tricky when it's not necessarily your day job, right? It's kind of in addition to your
Yeah,
job. And what I've learned quickly, and if you're, sort of active on social media at all, it takes time. I
definitely.
mean,
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge
yeah,
there. So, quick, is 401ks, I know that you and Haley are the founders. Is that still like an extension from the BPG?
yes. Yeah, great question. It's
Okay.
a brand under the brand. Yeah. Ideally, over the next 12 months, I think we continue to grow the platform. And eventually, what we'd like to see is to kind of have it become a big enough brand that it really starts to convert people into clients. They
Yeah.
are
Hmm.
seeing enough content, they're seeing who we are, we're getting referrals or people who are saying, hey, I want to work with you.
Yeah, I would like to see that success, and then we'll see you full time as 401k girls because they're like, listen, ladies, you cannot get off of that screen. You guys got to be pushing out content because you are killing it.
Yeah, raking in the leads and new clients with it.
That's the goal there.
That would be
Yeah.
awesome.
Yes, I love hearing that goal. And you will also, reminds me like the Golden Girls too. You could bring on more girls like once you expand. And by girls, I mean women because you're always a girl, right? That's what Golden Girls taught us.
That's right. We actually do get asked why 401k girls. And honestly, 401k women just doesn't have the same ring to it.
That's true.
I'm not offended by being called a girl. That's never bothered me. It's,
Right.
Tracy, you kind of mentioned this a little bit in the beginning. It feels playful. It feels a little bit more playful. It feels a little bit more fun, and that's the idea behind it. So, and yeah, we're absolutely open to grow. Our team has been growing under BPG, and we're always open to having more girls under the umbrella.
Ooh, that's amazing. So excited for you. Love to
Hmm.
be chatting during this amazing pivotal
Thank
time.
you.
Jessica, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Tracy and DJ, thank you so much. This was so fun.